Hi there. I'm just kicking around some ideas for a conference paper I've started to write, and I thought I'd do that a bit in public if you have the patience to listen to that. I really got the idea for this paper just a couple of days ago actually, when as many of you know, some of you may know, some of my videos are just coming back public from being unlisted, and as a result of that process a whole flood of them became live or were sent out to subscribers without me intending to do that. Videos which were in some cases 2 or 3 years old. I'm sorry about that. But one of the interesting that came out of that is that some folk re-engaged with them, and I've had conversations, live conversations with people about ideas which are actually quite old from my perspective, videos which I posted in a different part of the country, in a different frame of mind, when I was doing a different job, in a different kind of lifestyle setup. So it's quite interesting to be continuing a conversation which has been moribund for a couple of years. And that got me thinking about this really, and it started getting me thinking about these ideas to do with what it means to say that something is live, or what the concept of liveness is. So I'm just trying to think into that for, as I say, for this potential conference paper I want to write about it. Because this idea of liveness, what does it mean when something's live? I think we all kind of understand the term, that a live performance is one that you are physically at and the performer is at, and you're sharing a space and time with that performance of some kind. Or even a live broadcast, you might not be sharing the same space, but you're sharing the same time as the events that are taking place in a studio somewhere. A Google Hangout is live, isn't it? Even though it's not, even though it might be dispersed across numerous different spaces, it takes place live because it occupies this same moment in time. And that's kind of where I'm thinking into this. But also, as I say, this phenomenon of conversations being dropped and then picked up after months or years. And so I think to get into that, I think you need to think about this term live, or liveness as it's sometimes called, because I work in performance, and the idea of liveness is a key discussion in performance and theatre practice, obviously. Or maybe it's not obvious, I don't know. Is it obvious? Anyway, it is. And determining what liveness is and what feeds into that is absolutely part of performance studies and all the things that I do at work. And the most recent kinds of discussions in my area of work about liveness have really been framed around a distinction between the live and what's sometimes called the mediatized, or the recorded and broadcast. Basically anything that's pumped through technological media of some kind. Live is that which is not mediatized. That's how the contradistinction is made. The chap who comes up with this, who speaks most about this, is a guy called Philip Auslander, who's a media theorist and performance theorist in the States. And he does write some really nice stuff. He wrote a little book called Liveness, which is very readable, deals a lot with pop music and rock music, which is one of his major interests outside of performance and media. And talking about liveness in that context, where you just have a live performance. And what he says there, and I think it's kind of important for me to get the context to that, is that he says that we often make the distinction between the live and the recorded. In fact, he says our understanding of what live means these days is really only made in contradistinction to the recorded. Like the example I gave a minute ago, you had a live performance and the performer is there in front of you. Well, we understand that experience because we know there's something other than that. We know there is this thing called recorded performance, where you're watching a YouTube video or something like that of a performance that happened a long time ago. So we know that's not live. So the fact that's not live gives clear boundaries and an understanding of what the live really is. That's his thesis on that, really, that our understanding of live is intimately bound up with its opposite, which is the mediatized. Now he then goes on to talk about the difficult relationship with that. Now it's not quite as simple as that anymore. The examples he gives are things like if you go to a pop concert, chances are a lot of the music you're listening to will have been pre-recorded. So whilst you're in a live experience with a performer, that a lot of the sounds that you're hearing are not live, they're recorded. And similarly, a lot of them have visual backdrops, don't they? A lot of screens and projections go on. And those of course will have all been recorded in advance. So we think of this as a live event, but it's actually got a lot of mediatized practice folded into it. And in fact, in many cases, particularly with better known musicians, pop singers, the pressure is on, apparently, in their live performances to reproduce the condition of the recorded, so the fans, for example, would be disappointed if their live performance didn't look very much like their music videos. So they make a great deal of effort to reproduce the conditions of the music video live, you know, with lots of cuts and lots of kind of effects and so on. So the live starts to take on the appearance, at least, of the recorded, as well as having recorded and broadcast media folded into it. So whilst we understand the live in contradistinction to mediatized, it is a distinction in which is dynamic. There's things happening within it. Okay, so that's my kind of starting point for this thought. And where I think I might go with that is, first off, I think I'd like to critique that idea. I'd like to say, actually, I'm not sure if that's true, because I'm not convinced that prior to the development of technological media, recording media and broadcast media 150 years ago, I'm not convinced that everything was considered to be live. You know, one of the things that Ausland and other people have said is that prior to all this media, then everything was live. You know, if you can't record something, everything is by nature live. You probably wouldn't call it that because everything is live. But he kind of suggests that. But I'm not sure that's the case. You know, because before there was media, technological media, there was certainly things like gossip, wasn't there, and rumour, and tale-telling and stories. People would report on events that weren't happening co-present. People would say what someone had said. There'd be the processes of hearsay and whispers and those kind of processes by which a person's words spoken in a different place at a different time are conveyed in this moment at this time through gossip, as I say, or rumour or storytelling or something like that, which isn't a technologically mediated form of non-live activity, but nevertheless it is a kind of that, isn't it? There is a kind of non-live, non-co-present, non-co-temporal activity there, I think. So I think I might want to start off by first just questioning the idea that our modern understanding of the live does come about with technological media, and there are many precursors to that. But then I think I would also want to focus on a different kind of understanding of live, which is to do with time and to do with nowness. Because as I said before, and I think most people will probably agree, that one of the key features of liveness is that it's when events share a moment in time. You know, me and these set of keys, oh, that's a terrible example, me and this set of keys to my old Volvo, we share a moment in time together. These are live. These keys are live for me now. I'm not looking at a photograph of those keys that was taken 10 years ago or something. So there's a moment. There's something to do with now in there, I think. And when two events, let's say two people, but it could be just events, it could be me on my own, has a moment in time, then it's live. In other words, to understand liveness, I think we have to understand what now is. Because if you and I share a moment of now, then we are live together. Yes? If I share a moment of now with a performer, then we are live together. So what is this now thing? That's where I want to go with that next. And to get into the idea of now, I would want to figure out what that means. What does it mean to be in the present, to be in this moment of now, possibly with another person? But how long is a moment of now? What is the duration of it? Which is quite important. I think we tend to think that now is just a thin cross-section through time, a little slice, you know, where the future is constantly pouring past it, like the read-write head of an old tape recorder. But we know that's not the case. We know that now, the present, this moment that we're in now, does have duration. There's quite a few people talk about that. William James calls it the specious present. Gerald Edelman, neuroscientist, calls it the remembered present. It's in Husserl? I think it's Husserl. He talks about this moment of now containing a bit of the past and a bit of the future, the not now and the not yet now. And we know that from examples from things like pieces of music, or just sentences. These sentences I'm saying, I'm guessing that as you're listening to these sentences, what you're not experiencing, tell me if I'm wrong here, what you're not experiencing is each of these words sliding through your present consciousness and then sliding out to become then, moving into the now and then becoming then. That's not how it tends to work. What tends to happen is that a sentence just kind of accumulates until it gets to the end and then it moves on. So the sentence that I said a few seconds ago is then, in the past, but this sentence that I'm saying now is in a now that has a duration to it, and it's all in the same moment of now before it becomes then. So that's how people tend to think about it, or in music. You know, I think it was probably William James, but it might have been other people, talked about music in the same terms. So when you listen to a piece of music, you don't hear it one note at a time. You hear the music accumulating in the now. Each section of music accumulates in one moment of extended present and then moves on as the next phrase begins, the next part of it begins. So it's much more like that. So now has duration. So this moment of liveness that we're in together also has duration. You and I are in the same extended moment of now together, then we are live together. There's an experience of liveness. So how long is this now? It's an interesting one, this, because conversations, and I think this is a conversation, have a similar kind of relationship to an extended present that a single sentence does. As I said before, you know, as I'm making these sounds and forming words, and these words are accumulating into sentences, it's not really until you get to the end of the sentence that sentence moves on. But if we're in conversation together, particularly if you're sitting opposite me at this kitchen table, and we're in animated conversation and we're waving our arms about and you're interrupting me and I'm interrupting you, it's not just me that's in this moment of now, we're sharing it. That conversational exchange occupies that same moment of now. And it's not until we've got to the end of a particular point, or maybe a change of topic, that moment of now becomes a moment of then, and we're into the next moment of now together in this dynamic live exchange, a liveness, a live conversation with an extended moment of shared now, shared present. That's kind of how I'm thinking of that. So, how long can now be in a conversation? I think in live conversations, you know, when people are just in the room together, there's that kind of natural constraints on that. There's a natural kind of choreography or composition that takes place, isn't there, of people in conversations where they kind of rise and fall together. But this kind of thing, where there's a conversation that takes place through recorded media. I record this on my flip camera, upload it to YouTube. You see it. You record your response, or you think about a comment response. You put that onto YouTube. It comes back. That's a long duration. We're not caught in the same temporal moment together. We're certainly not in the same space together. But are we in the same now together? And I think there's an argument to be made that we are, in fact, part of a kind of long now, the long now of technologically mediated conversation. And within that, there is some kind of liveness. You know, when people are responding or making comments on videos that I posted 2 years ago, walking on a salt line, an old disused railway line, 350 miles to the north of where I'm sitting now, walking a dog that's dead, that died over a year ago, when people are responding to that, I think it's still a live conversation. And when I respond to them, I think we're still in the same moment. It feels like we're still in the same moment of now. It's not this now of my kitchen. There's lots of different nows, I think. But there is a sense in which that is an extended present, a moment of shared now. And I think that conversation still exhibits lots of the features of liveness. Anyhow, that's what I've got to so far. It might turn into a conference paper, it might end here at a video, but yeah, I'd welcome any thoughts you might have on that. Thanks very much. Bye.